Hopefully it's not taking long. How's everything in New York?
It's good. We had some wildfire smoke over the weekend, which was not great, but today it's beautiful. So getting
That
cold.
that's the crazy thing. I live in a city near Chicago, and there haven't been wildfires, but there have been several house fires lately, like about 3 to 4 in the past
No.
month.
Oh
I
no.
don't know what's going on. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But I'm glad you're safe, and it just goes to show you that the climate's changing, and I hope we get some snow pretty soon, right?
I know. It's really it just is so sad.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah.
yeah. Well, I am glad you're here, Emma.
I'm so
So
happy to be
welcome.
here.
Yeah, welcome community to our YouTube Live, our weekly YouTube Live, as we have conversations with parents who are sharing their story about homeschooling. But today we have somebody very special. We have an author with us, Emma. Emma, welcome. And can you please pronounce your last name for us?
Yes. My last name is Otheguy, or in Spanish, Otheguy. And I always tell people it's the easiest way to remember how to pronounce it is to kind of ignore the H. And it rhymes with Peggy for English speakers. So Otheguy rhymes with Peggy.
Yeah, so you've written several books, children's books actually, and I was excited to see your collection because these are stories, even the titles, which I like the title like Too Many Tías. Like
Yes.
we get a lot of Latinas can relate to that, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't really sometimes mean the quantity of tías, it's just basically how much influence they can have on us, right? And that's actually kind of a cool thing of growing up in my personal experience, in a Mexican household where everybody gives their opinion, but then sometimes the opinions kind of help the mother, not kind of get out of hand. That's my opinion, my
Yeah, I
story.
always say I in fact do have a lot of aunts, but my aunt Emmy, who the book is dedicated to, could really just be like she counts for all three of the aunts in the book because she's, tremenda, like her personality. So a lot of big personalities.
Oh, that's so cool. I don't know what I would do without them. I don't have my mom anymore. And if it
Mm,
wasn't for one of my aunts that I count on all the time to call about my kids,
yeah.
it's really nice to
Yeah.
have that support. So if you're not close to any of your aunts, maybe one of your mom's good friends can be, also an aunt, a tia, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, Emma, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you mind if I share my screen? I was just thinking it
Don't
might be
mind. I
easier.
don't.
I'm going to pull up some of my book covers so everybody can see them. Let me just share.
Is it letting you? Okay, great.
Yeah, so I'm the author of many books for children. You can see the covers of some of my books here. I've written, about Latin American history, like in Martí's Song for Freedom, which is a picture book biography of Cuban independence leader José Martí. I've also written picture books about, as we discussed, my family. So Martina has too many tías, which we were talking about before, is this one here with the yellow cover.
Mhm.
And I've also written a series of early readers. Those are for kids who are just learning to read called Reina Ramos Works It Out, which is just about a second grade girl and kind of she's always getting into hijinks her family, her classroom. So these are just some of the books I've written. And I grew up in a bilingual family in New York, raised speaking Spanish at home, and went to an English speaking school. And now I live in Queens with my family. I have three children, and working on the next book, which I'm so excited about. And that book, let me show you all the cover. I know we're going to talk more about it, but this is the cover of my upcoming book. It's called Cousins in the Time of Magic, and it is an time travel adventure about three cousins who travel back to 1862, which is the year of the US Civil War, and also the Battle of Puebla, which we now call Cinco de Mayo. So it's a fun adventure that also gives kids a chance to learn that history.
Hmm. Hmm. So, so these cousins travel. That's actually a very, very important time in history that
Yeah.
I think then, I mean, anybody can find out. We celebrate Cinco de Mayo here in the US a lot more than it's celebrated in Mexico. I lived in Mexico for 2 years, and Cinco de Mayo was, unfortunately, just like a regular,
Yeah,
we did a parade, and that was it. It was probably celebrated more in the state of Puebla than it was where I
yeah,
was living.
for sure.
But however, that was a very, very important battle that was won in Mexico because they were against an army that was much stronger than the Mexican army at the time. So, I mean, it's really great to explore that, the history in that, and actually have fun about it. Why these cousins go back in time, right? What happens, and how does that influence them in the present time?
Yeah, and I think you really captured it, which is it's interesting that Cinco de Mayo is celebrated more here in the United States than it is in Mexico, outside of the state of Puebla. But I think that the reason for that is actually it's really important. It's because Cinco de Mayo was so important for um, freedom struggles in the United States, right? The French army was marching into Puebla, trying to, on their way to Mexico City, trying to recolonize Mexico. And if they had been successful, we might all be speaking French right now, right? We might have become another French colony. The French might have successfully recolonized America. Or the other option or the other possibility, if we think that if the Mexicans had not defeated the French, is that the Confederates, this was in the middle of the US Civil War, the Confederacy really wanted European countries like France to recognize them, to be their allies, and to kind of grant them that legitimacy against the Union. And so, if Napoleon III's army had successfully retaken Mexico, the Confederates would have had that right on their southern border. So it would have been really bad for the Union. And so, Cinco de Mayo, I think it's really important for everyone in the United States and also, of course, in Mexico, because it also is this beautiful example, I think, of the underdog being successful, right? Like you said, like a more powerful army and being able to defend your sovereignty and to me it's like this story of the underdog can sometimes win, can sometimes be successful, um especially when it really matters. So that's kind of why I chose this time period. And the reason that the kids go back in time is actually really fun. So if you remember on the cover, there's that sword.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
found out when I was doing the research for this book that Latinos in the United States in the 1860s had actually made a sword for General Zaragoza, who was the a general who led the Battle of Puebla successfully. Latinos in the United States were so excited about this victory that they had made him a parade sword, which is like a decorative sword, as like a thank you. And then it was lost. Like it was made, there are records of it having made, and then it just disappears, and nobody knows what happened to it. So I was really fascinated by that. I thought that was so interesting. And so I thought, oh, what if these kids like have this sword and they're going back in time to deliver it and it's like a little bit magical. And so the sword becomes kind of like a fun magical element in the book.
Yeah, I'm just really, really, I'm sorry, I'm just really listening to you because it really is very interesting, the story, and I didn't know that about the sword. There's so many things in history, and I'm Mexican American, and I there's a lot of history that I need to know because even if I don't live in reside in Mexico, whatever happened is really impacting who we are right now and what
Yeah.
we're doing in both of
That's,
these countries.
if
So
there's
thank you
one
for
message people take from my book, it's exactly that. It's that there's no
yeah.
um it matters to all of us, right? Like I think that like what happens in Mexico matters in the United States. What happens in the United States matters in Mexico and in Latin America, in all of Latin America. It really it almost doesn't matter what national background you have. we're all connected, and that's what I hope kids really learn from the book.
Yeah, and it's a fun way for them to really dive in and delve into their history
Yeah.
and everything. Just like my daughter and I were. I mean, she's learning civics, but I mean, there's some things that I even didn't remember from when I was in seventh or eighth grade, and that I'm relearning right now. But then again, I really try to pay attention to our history, that our stories are really represented, and that's something that Latinos sometimes we have a hard time finding stories that really represent us. And I'm glad that I'm now seeing authors such as you. I mean, I go to the library, and our librarian is very intentional to put these stories, because she understands that a lot of students that go to the library are Latinos, and
Yeah.
that they shouldn't only be up there when it's Hispanic Heritage Month. That we
Yes.
are we would need to be told all the time, when there's new book releases and everything.
Yeah.
So that would be a great thing. I need to tell a librarian about your book so it can
Oh,
be
I would
ordered.
love that. And I think that's
Yeah. So,
also like why the book is magic and why it's an adventure is also that
yeah.
I want everybody to see that like yes, this is an opportunity to learn history, but it's also fun. It's fun to read about time travel. It's fun to read about magic swords, I hope, and so that's part of my goal is to really bring in a wide range of people in that way.
Yeah. So I do have an announcement for our community. So Emma has been so generous that she wants to gift one book, one signed copy for whoever signs up to Latinos homeschooling newsletter. So I will put the link when we're done with this call, and then also share it on Instagram and our Facebook page. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Emma. And I'll
You.
do the drawing live at the end of the week
Okay.
on Instagram. And thank you for your generosity. The book comes out though in February, but you can pre-order it.
Yeah.
So if you want to gift it to somebody during, for Christmas, maybe just print something out, like a little image of the book and what it's about. It's still a great, even though it's still a great gift that could be given. But plus, you have other books. It's not the only book. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a number of books that are available. So I'll post a link to your website as well,
Yes.
and the link to the book, so that way they can also read about it.
Yes.
And then encourage their libraries to get it as well, so that way people can find out, especially that Cinco de Mayo isn't just a party and drink. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're celebrating a great victory of an underdog. But then also it's an opportunity for people to, especially people in the United States, to find out the real reason why this celebration is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything you've said is, I really appreciate for people to go to my website, which is just my name, moteggy.com. And then pre-orders really make a difference. If you can order Cousins in the Time of Magic, if you plan on getting it, ordering it now, just it really helps booksellers especially get to, see that there's excitement for the book. But also, even if you can't buy the book and you, like you said, you tell your librarian about it and your library orders it, that it really makes a difference for me and it really helps me get my book into kids' hands. And so I'm really excited to give away a copy to somebody who signs up for Latinos in Homeschooling this at the end of this week. Because if you win, you'll get to be the first person to read it because the book isn't even out yet.
Yeah, and plus it's going to be autographed. So
Yes.
yes, let's support Latino authors, because our stories do need to be told. And second, for our audience, please let your librarians know to put more of Emma's books on a shelf so everybody can read them.
Yeah, I love that.
And thank you so much
Thank
for your
you so
time,
much.
Emma. And,
It was so great meeting you and talking to
yeah,
you.
and we're going to be working together hopefully
Yeah.
in the coming year.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, Emma, if you ever want to meet her, she could do a live session for us and basically just talk about her book, go over, do a reading for our youth, for our students.
Yeah, no, I think, and I'd be really excited for anybody in the Latinos and homeschooling community to read the book with their kids. And you all are a lot more agile than other schools that are using curriculum where they don't get a lot of choice over what they read. So it would just be really exciting for me for someone in your community to read the book, and then hopefully we'll be able to continue to connect in the new year.
We will.
All
Thank you,
right.
and much,
Thank you so
much
much.
more greater success to you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thanks for having me
Have-
on.
Yes, have a
Bye.
great day.
Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Bye-bye.